Welcome to my channel Karma Romance Stories. Please like, subscribe for more videos.
For 10 years, I had been the daughter everyone called whenever money was needed. At the end of every month, my mother would call me with the same cold sentence: "The mortgage is overdue. Pay it now." Then she would remind me that my sister needed something too: a car payment, a medical bill, a vacation, a new appliance. And this time, it was $12,000 for my sister's new house. I had always paid until that night. When I finally said no, my mother went completely silent. Then she exploded and told me to know my place. I looked at the woman who had spent 10 years treating me like the family emergency fund and calmly said, "I do know my place." What she did not know was that I had already discovered something that could change everything. And the next morning, when she opened the envelope I had left for her, she finally learned who had really been paying the mortgage all those years. My name is Emily, and for most of my adult life, I believed that helping your family was simply what good daughters were supposed to do. My mother raised me to believe that family came first. She repeated those words whenever I wanted to save money. She repeated them whenever I wanted to take a vacation. She repeated them whenever I said I was tired of being responsible for everyone. Family comes first, Emily. That sentence followed me through almost every important decision I made. When I got my first serious job, my mother was proud of me, but the pride did not last long. Within a few months, she started asking for help. At first, it was small. "Can you cover the electricity bill this month? Can you help with the insurance? Can you send $300 because your sister is short?" I never complained. Then the requests became larger. My younger sister Rachel had always been treated differently. She was the beautiful daughter. She was the daughter my mother worried about. She was the daughter who supposedly needed more help. If Rachel wanted something, my mother somehow found a reason why she deserved it. When Rachel wanted a better car, my mother said she needed reliable transportation. When Rachel wanted an expensive vacation, my mother said she worked hard and deserved a break. When Rachel moved into a bigger apartment, my mother said she needed more space. And every time there was a problem, my mother looked at me. "Emily, can you help?" I became the solution to problems I had never created. For years, I accepted it because I wanted peace. I thought if I kept helping everyone, there would eventually come a day when my family would understand what I had sacrificed. That day never came. Instead, the demands became normal. By the time 10 years had passed, I was no longer asked whether I could afford something. I was simply told to pay it. At the end of every month, my phone would ring. It was almost always my mother. The conversation was predictable. "The mortgage is overdue. Pay it now." Then came the second demand: "And send your sister some money." I knew exactly what that meant. Rachel had found another reason she needed money. One month it was $3,000. Another month it was $5,000. Another time it was nearly $8,000. I kept telling myself that it was temporary, but temporary became permanent. Then came the month that changed everything. It was a Thursday evening. I had just arrived home from work. I had barely taken off my shoes when my phone rang. "Mun," I answered. There was no hello, no "how are you," no question about my day. The first thing she said was, "The mortgage is overdue." I closed my eyes. I already knew where this conversation was going. "How much?" She said the amount and then immediately added something else. "And Rachel needs $12,000. I asked why. There was a pause. For a moment, I thought she might actually explain. Instead, she said Rachel bought a house. I was stunned. Rachel bought a house. Yes, she needs help with the closing costs and some repairs. I looked around my apartment. I had been living in the same modest place for years. I had delayed replacing my car. I had postponed several trips. I had built my savings slowly because I had always believed that something could happen. And now my mother wanted $12,000 so my sister could move into a house. I said, "Mom, I cannot do that." Silence. It was the first time in 10 years I had ever said those words. "I cannot." My mother asked what I meant. I repeated it. "I cannot send Rachel $12,000. Then I said something I'd been afraid to say for years. I am not paying the mortgage anymore either. There was another silence, but this one felt different. It felt dangerous. My mother finally said, "Excuse me." I told her I had helped for 10 years. I had paid bills. I had covered emergencies. I had sacrificed my own plans, and I was done being treated like the family bank account. Her voice became louder. "You're being selfish." I stayed quiet. She continued, "After everything we have done for you." I almost laughed because I knew the truth. My family had done many things for me, but I had also done far more than anyone wanted to acknowledge. Then she said the sentence that finally broke something inside me. "Know your place." I looked at the phone. For years, those words would have terrified me. That night, they did not. I answered quietly, "I do." My mother stopped talking. I continued, "I know exactly what my place is, and my place is not underneath everyone else." Then I ended the call. For the first time in 10 years, I did not send the money. I went to bed expecting guilt. Instead, I felt something I had almost forgotten: relief. The next morning, my phone was full of messages. My mother, Rachel, then my mother's husband. Everyone wanted to know why I had suddenly become difficult. Rachel sent me a message saying that I was ruining her life. She said the house depended on my money. That sentence made me stop. Her house depended on my money. I stared at the screen. Then I realized something. Rachel had never asked me for money directly. My mother had always asked for her. What? That question had been sitting inside my mind for years. So I opened my computer. I started looking through old bank statements, then old emails, then payment confirmations. I found something that made my stomach drop. The mortgage payments were not going where I thought they were going. For years, I had been transferring money to an account my mother told me was used for the family mortgage. But there were other transactions, large transactions, transfers to accounts I did not recognize, payments connected to renovations, payments connected to property taxes, payments connected to a second property. I kept digging. Then I found the document. The house my mother had called her house was not entirely what I had been told. Years earlier, my father had passed away. Before his death, he had created a small family trust. Before his death, he had created a small family TR. I had never been told much about it. My mother always said the paperwork was complicated and that she handled everything. But there was a reason she had been so careful. My name was on the documents. Not as a borrower, not as a helper, as a beneficiary. I called the attorney listed on the paperwork. At first, I was nervous. I explained who I was. He asked me a few questions. Then he said something I would never forget. "Emily, I have been waiting for you to contact me." My heart started beating faster. "What?" He told me that my father had left specific instructions. He had wanted the family home protected for me and my sister, but he had also placed conditions on certain funds. The money was supposed to help both daughters become financially independent. It was never intended to become an unlimited source of money for one child. I asked him about the mortgage. He told me the mortgage had been refinanced years earlier. I asked who was responsible for the payments. He gave me the answer: my mother. I said, "Then why have I been paying it?" He went silent. Then he asked me to send him copies of my payment records. I spent the next several hours gathering everything: 10 years of payments, 10 years of transfers, 10 years of money leaving my account because I believed I was saving my family home. The attorney reviewed everything. Then he told me something even more shocking. Some of the payments I had made had gone toward expenses that were not related to the original mortgage. I had unknowingly been covering expenses connected to the property and other family obligations. I felt sick. I had not just been helping. I had been kept in the dark. And suddenly, my mother's anger made sense. She did not want me to stop. She could not afford for me to stop. That evening, my mother called again. This time, I did not answer. She called again, then again. Finally, she left a voicemail. Her voice sounded different. Less angry, more frightened. "Emily, call me." I did not. The next morning, I received a message from my mother saying she had found something. She told me to come to the house. I knew exactly what she meant. She had discovered the documents, but she had not discovered everything. I went there anyway. When I arrived, my mother was standing in the kitchen. Rachel was there too. Neither of them spoke. My mother placed a folder on the table. "Where did you get this?" I said from the attorney. Her face changed. Rachel looked at her. "What is going on?" My mother did not answer. I opened the folder. Inside were copies of the trust documents, payment records, property records, and a statement showing exactly how much money had moved through the accounts. Rachel picked up one page. Her eyes widened. "Mun." My mother told her to put it down. Rachel asked why my name was on the document. My mother said it was complicated. I looked at her. "No, it is not complicated. You told me I had to pay the mortgage. You told me Rachel needed money. You told me that if I refused, I was abandoning the family. But you never told me that Dad had protected money for both of us." Rachel looked at me. "You knew about this?" I said no. I just found out. Then Rachel looked at our mother. "Why did you never tell me?" My mother started crying. For the first time, I did not immediately comfort her. That was difficult, because I had spent my entire life believing that when my mother cried, it was my responsibility to fix whatever was wrong. But that day I understood something. Sometimes comforting someone means helping them avoid the consequences of their own choices. I was done doing that. My mother finally admitted that she had used my payments to keep the household financially stable. She admitted she had borrowed against some family assets. She admitted that Rachel had received more help than I knew. Then Rachel asked the question that changed the entire conversation. "How much money did Emily actually give you?" My mother looked at me. I answered, "I had the total. It was far more than $12,000. It was more than I could comfortably say out loud." Rachel sat down. She stared at the table. Then she whispered, "I thought Mom was paying for everything." I looked at her. "Maybe you should have asked." Rachel began crying. For years, I had blamed her for everything. But sitting there, I realized she was also part of a family system that had taught her to expect rescue. That did not excuse her behavior, but it explained it. Until that night. When I finally said no, my mother went completely silent. Then she exploded and told me to know my place. I looked at the woman who had spent 10 years treating me like the family emergency fund and calmly said, "I do know my place." What she did not know was that I had already discovered something that could change everything. And the next morning, when she opened the envelope I had left for her, she finally learned who had really been paying the mortgage all those years. If there is one lesson in this story, it is this. Never confuse being generous with being responsible for everyone. Families should support each other. But support should not become control. If someone becomes angry simply because you set a financial boundary, then the problem may not be your boundary. The problem may be that they were benefiting from you having none. And sometimes the most powerful sentence you can say is not, "I will pay." It is, "I cannot, I will not." And I know my place. My place is where I can live with dignity. My place is where my choices belong to me. My place is where love does not have a price tag.